Alright guys, so we are going to take a look at the game between the Viper and Lucifron. So this was part of the Steelseries tournament that was recently played. Actually, at the time of this recording, is currently being played. Viper did take down Lucifron 2-0, sorry for the spoilers, but in this video we're actually going to be focusing on the Viper's build, his approach, and we're going to kind of analyze how he plays this game, because he's playing one of the hardest matchups in the sense that Abbasid as a whole is just pretty weak, or considered to be pretty weak by most people, and Rus is like the strongest, and Abbasid doesn't really have a way to punish the Rus in the early game or contest hunts the same way that other civs do. It doesn't really make sense for them to be going professional scouts because they want to be going for a double TC. And if they go professional scouts, it's just going to delay his second TC from coming up. So he's not going to really be able to deny the deer gathering from Lucifron, playing as the Rus here. So opening with 7 vils on food, coming out to gold right away here. If you are interested in kind of learning the double TC build, I do have a previous video on it. I have watched this game already. And it's pretty much identical to that, but we're going to be kind of running through how he approaches like the later stages of the game and how he kind of manages to repel the Cav Archer timing push that Rus is capable of. So he's out. He instantly made a second scout as well. I should mention that, from his TC to deny some of these deer patches from the Rus player. He's managed to get the 2 home patches here. And bringing a wolf back to the TC, so he'll drop off his sheep with this scout and bring the wolf back to kill that as well. So far, 7 vils on food, 3 on gold. He did have to make an early scout, which means that he isn't chopping any wood yet, and he's building his house of wisdom so he can age up as soon as he has the resources. So he's out on the map continuously killing wolves and deer and denying anything that Rus has at the moment. So he's got 8 on food, 3 on gold, and 1 building the House of Wisdom. So Rus already beginning his age up. We are going to take a look forth and back to kind of take a look at what Lucifron is doing every now and again, but our main focus is going to be on the Viper, as this is more focused on how Abbasids can play based on, and how an Abbasid player can play based on what his opponent's doing, and what you should be thinking about, and what we can take away when it comes from the Viper's play with Abbasid. At the moment, he's one of the most active Abbasid players on the top level. I don't see anyone playing it nearly as much as he is. And to be playing it in a competitive tournament like this against like one of the other best players in the game is really ballsy. So he obviously was confident with his build with the Abbasid, picking that on the first map against most likely to be Rus or Mongols. But Rus does thrive on this map, so I guess he expected that. Not actually sure what his civ ban was. Maybe it was the Mongols, so that he knew he would be coming up against the Rus here. But nonetheless, he's aging up. He's transitioned a lot of his vils over to wood here. 6 on wood, sending 5 more to stone. Now he's gathered enough gold to get fresh food stuffs, keeping 2 vils on there as well. Going out with the economic win, which is pretty standard, especially when you're going for another TC here, as you can get the discounted villages. So they go from 50 food down to 25. Rus opted to age up really fast as well, putting the 6 villages on the Wonder. So I guess he wanted to do that so he could come over and steal his opponent's hunts before the second TC is dropped on top of that. Because pretty much every game, or most games, you can expect the Abbasid player to be going double TC. It's by far their most viable strategy at the moment. Up to the second age. I assume he's going to be taking fresh food stuff straight away. There we go. 7 on stone, 6 on wood, 3 on food to keep constant villager production. Generally, 4 is a sweet number to keep the constant vil production going. But he did like overgather a bit of like the food, probably intentionally as well. So that he could only have 3 gathering food at this point. Okay, so a little bit of lull, basically just focusing on his macro, gathering the stone for his second TC, which he'll drop off manually here. Leaving 1 on stone, I'm not sure if that's intentional. This might be for tower upgrades down the line, but I don't know if that's intentional or not. Bringing Vils out here to drop a town center on the deer carcasses to try and deny the Rus player from getting it, at least for free here. This is a very risky town center spot. Viper comes from an AOE2 background, so TCs are usually spread really far in this game, in AOE2, sorry. But these TCs compared to AOE2 are a lot weaker, right? They're easy to take down, and it makes you very vulnerable because you can only put 10 villagers inside of this. So we'll wait and see to how he plans on defending this town center out here. Now transitioning pretty much all of his villages off of wood. This suggests to me that he wants to get up to castle age quickly here, rather than focusing on having any age 2 play. You know the Rus is going to go fast castle. I'm sure he's scouted it and knows what's going on. Lucifron nicely pulling deer away from the town center. So not actually taking them all the way back. He actually brought them out of range of the town center fire so he could safely pick them up later. Very smart from Lucifron there. So Viper is going to be aging a lot later than Lucifron, so this should give us some insight in how you can hold despite having a much later castle age here. As long as Viper can hold long enough here, he will eventually outscale in terms of the economy, the Rus. But yeah, the tricky part usually in this matchup is actually being able to get to that stage of the game, especially on such an open map. He did have some nice wood spawns here though, so he could look at walling up a little bit here. But we'll see how he plays it. So putting a tower on top of these berries here. He doesn't have access to any hunts, obviously they've been stolen. But the Abbasid do get extra food from the berry bushes once they put a mill in the radius of those berry bushes. As we can see, his macro, he still has a fair few on wood, I'm guessing, so he can build towers. Maybe look at building some walls, maybe put down an archery range or a barracks as well. But besides that, his macro looks like he's trying to get up to the next stage. They're putting down a barracks now. You would expect the Rus player to age very soon. They usually age from anywhere from 740, 750 to the 9-minute mark, depending on how many scouts they make and a bunch of other factors as well. Lucifron up 820. The Viper is just over halfway in terms of his resources to click up. Another thing to keep in mind is the Abbasid cannot speed up their age time, so yeah, there's going to be a window for Lucifron to do some real damage here. We'll see how Viper responds to this. So he's going with a Rax and also a stable. Probably looking to go pikemen and archers, as Lucifron is probably going to have some scouts on the front line of his horse archers. Okay, so now he's putting some walls up here. He's walling off the relic and he's also walling off anyone getting around the back towards his eco. Guessing he's, yep, dropping it down on the same side over here. So this might be able to delay it a bit, and it might give him time for villagers to run away. But if Lucifron has enough scouts here, he will be able to siege this down. Notice how he hasn't walled this off completely. He's just leaving a little choke here. This is so, like, he's still allowing an entry for the cav archers, and also it also leaves an awkward exit point. Like, it's very tight. It's in range of an outpost here and close to the town center as well. So he's looking to force a fight within this little radius here because it obviously gives the Viper a bit of an advantage. So Lucifron sending out his first horse archers here. I'd imagine his first monk is coming out as well. He's managing to pick up literally every single hunt here on the map. So again, kind of walling this off so Lucifron has a smaller choke to kind of come through in range of a tower and TC. So Viper is nearly halfway up. He's dropped 2 archery ranges, started producing archers and pikes here. Imagine you'd want to upgrade this before he gets to the next stage so he doesn't have to wait even longer. Most of his macro is towards wood and food. Obviously he needs to train more bills and he's making a lot more archers than he is pikes, so that is more wood intensive. He's also going to need to continuously build houses and more military productions as the game goes on as well. So he's completely walled off the edges of the map here and just leaving little open areas for Lucifron to come through. So again, heavily on wood here. Dropping down a blacksmith so he can get his ranged upgrades. I think when it comes to the Rus, the most important one to get is the ranged defense. Just because the cav archers are going to be damaging multiple units. Like, ranged attack isn't going to be buffing your spearmen, it's only going to be buffing your archers. Whereas if you get the ranged defense, it's going to be buffing all your units against the cav archers. And most of the time, like Lucifron is, he's just making scouts and cav archers. Scouts aren't a real threat with their melee damage of... Doesn't show because he's torching right now, but it's low. It's low. Trying to poke a little with his archers. Keep in mind, in similar masses, horse archers do actually trade pretty well versus archers. They are a stronger unit overall, but they cost slightly more. So Lucifron has managed to come around the back here. We'll just wait and see how he responds. So he's actually opting to go for the attack before the defense. Generally speaking, obviously Viper is a very good player and he knows what he's doing, but I still do believe that the defense makes more sense. Especially the defense will also like help with villages, I believe, so they will actually gain a ranged armor as well once you get the defense in, which will slightly help against horse archers as well. Hasn't re-walled it. He might go look out to re-wall that. He has managed to snipe most of the horse archers, which are the main threat here. He kind of ignored the scouts and focused on killing the damage units because the scouts aren't going to be that good at raiding his villages. Lucifron looking to force Viper come out of his base, capturing the sacred sites here. But Viper's done a good job here in cleaning up the army. He's going to re-wall the back here, so he's still again trying to force Lucifron to come through the chokes that he's created. And most of the main threat here is kind of mitigated. Have a take a quick look at Lucifron. So he's still in single TC. He's just getting a lot of gold here from sacred sites and relics. Now coming in through the choke here, Tower should be able to hold this for a bit until he manages to get his units across. He is still trying to deal with those scouts, but lost a few villages, nothing crazy. Viper is actually at 58 vills, Lucifron at 42, so nice vill lead. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Let's take a look at the income per minute. This should give us an idea of the... Okay, so the Viper is actually behind right now in terms of resources per minute. This is a little buggy, but just because Lucifron is getting relic gold right now and sacred site gold, that's obviously going to influence that quite a lot. And also he has some idle bills here. Deletes the mangonel so he doesn't lose the resources here. That's another benefit of Abbasid if you are playing them, is definitely utilize the building siege on the battlefield. He manages to repel with the archers. It doesn't look like Lucifron has any blacksmith upgrades. He has +1 attack right now, that's it. Viper has +1 attack and defense at the moment. So he's able to trade reasonably efficient here. So he's repelled the pressure out of his base. He's continuing to make vills from 2 TCs. He's making pretty cost-effective trades here, I'd say. It's not like he's winning the fights, but in terms of cost effectiveness, it's not bad, and it's keeping his horse archers out of his base for the time being. But he does need to pull back because he's getting a bit overwhelmed here. He'll pull back these into the tower, losing 2 vills. So what did he age up? So he actually went with the culture wing for age 3, but hasn't actually utilized the preservation of knowledge, which is the main benefit of the culture wing. Now, one thing as well, I know Viper's a really good player, but there is actually another thing he's missing in this game, is he's not making any camels. So if he makes 1 camel archer in this army composition here, it actually decreases the attack of all of Lucifron's cavalry here. So they would be dealing significant amount less if he had a camel archer here just chilling in the back. And as long as Viper was microing that back, he would actually be able to keep that debuff on all these horsemen, dealing a lot less damage, and ultimately allow Viper to trade much better. You don't want to build like mass of camels because the stats themselves are not really good, but having them within your army to debuff these horse units is really helpful as the Abbasid. When I first saw this matchup, I was thinking maybe that's what Viper is planning on doing, like using that to his effect to be able to counter kind of the mass horse archers that Lucifron is going to be making. But so far he's just going spear and archers and making siege on the battlefield. Now another thing to keep in mind is obviously Viper's eco is ramping up with the double TC, so he's constantly building more military buildings here. It's a lot of things that, this is something that I see a lot in like lower ranks, and also even I catch myself doing this, is I don't build enough military buildings to fund kind of my economy. So in order to keep your resources as low as possible, you're going to need more military buildings. So Viper doing a pretty good job of just holding out any pressure here. Lucifron doesn't really want to be diving towers and TCs to make too bad of a trade, because he knows that his opponent is economically ahead. So if he does lose too much of his army, he's going to be setting himself a bit behind here. So now we see the income per minute evening up a bit here. It looks around about the same. The Viper might be like 100 resources per minute behind, but it's pretty similar now, considering I'm guessing the Vil gap has widened a bit. 80 to 57, as you can see there. Really good trade here for the Viper. Lucifron losing quite a lot of horse archers to pikemen. He's also mixing men-at-arms here, and the reason he's mixing some men-at-arms is here because he's going to be able to tank more damage with those. So it's going to be really hard for Lucifron to pick off the pikes. He's likely just going to be A moving and walking back, attack moving and walking back. So having the men-at-arms there to soak up some of the damage is really nice. Okay, Springolds here as well. So Springolds do okay damage now. They have been nerfed, so they only do 30 damage to units, which means it takes 4 shots to kill a horse archer. But if Viper is able to make enough Springolds to kill his opponents, he can then start mixing in mangonels as well. So I think that's the main kind of logic behind him building Springolds here. He's actually upgraded his tower as well, I believe. Oh, we can't actually check, but he has some sort of emplacement, either arrow slits or Springolds. If I was paying attention, I probably would have seen. There we go, that's a Springold emplacement. And the Springold emplacement on towers actually does what a Springold was doing before the recent nerf. So it will be doing 90 damage to these horse archers. I believe it's 90 or maybe 60. So I think it 2 shots a horseman. So he's utilizing these towers effectively. He's actually going with arrow slits on this one. I'm not really sure why. But he's just holding on here and just relying on the fact that his eco will outscale. And as soon as he shuts down some of these sacred sites, it just means he's going to be able to pull further and further ahead economically. I'm not sure how this fight will go here. Doesn't look like he quite has the numbers to deal with these horse archers. Nonetheless, he's going to fight it, so let's see how this plays out. Archer's doing quite well here, actually. He will have to back off, I believe. He will not win this fight. But pikes are really good at melting the scout front line. Obviously scouts can need a lot of archer shots, but pikes, they get like 2 or 3 shot I believe. Trying to advance with towers here, but a bit ambitious considering how that fight went. Maybe if he did that a little bit earlier, it would have been fine. But I'd imagine the sacred site victory is getting reasonably close. So he needs to make an advancement and do something about it. Let's check out current resources. So as you can see, he's got enough military buildings to the point of where he's keeping his resources as low as possible. And that should be the objective with anyone in any given game. Unless you're planning on aging up, you want this to be low as possible so that you're maximizing the potential that your current economy is bringing you. So you want to have the max amount of units on the battlefield at any given time. So he's actually managed to sneak out a tower over here and denied this sacred site. So Lucifron coming out with a keep. He also has a second TC as well. Let's check on the eco. 76 vills to 92. So Viper still has a solid lead in terms of villages, but I'd imagine the economy is pretty even still. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same here. But Viper nicely utilizing his towers to push out here, putting springald emplacements, which are really effective against these horse archers. Just slowly gaining more and more map control and limiting the places in which Lucifron can fight. There is an opening in this wood line now, so he needs to just be considerate of that. His macro is still like very kind of food heavy, right? Wood heavy, sorry, because he's mostly making archers, adding in siege, which is what he's got his gold on for, and then adding in pikes. So he still needs quite a few on food, but majority is going to be on wood when you are making mostly archers, and adding in siege as well. So at the moment he's got 3 archery ranges and 3 barracks. Got all his military upgrades, has no melee defense. Obviously at this stage of the game it's a waste unless you see your opponent transitioning into, say, men at arms or knights, which is what I believe that Lucifron probably should have done a bit earlier, is mix in some men at arms so that he can tank a lot of this kind of army rather than the scouts just melting to pikes. Nonetheless, like, Viper's playing this extremely well right now. So Lucifron has decided to go up to the next stage. I wonder why he's doing that. I guess he just wants to take advantage on his horse archers so he can trade a bit better with Viper's army. But considering Viper's income is a bit better now than Lucifron's, considering Lucifron is fully transitioned to farms and has lost a sacred site. So Viper is forcing the issue here. He probably suspects that Lucifron was aging up just because he didn't see any horse archers out in the field. So in this situation, if you know that like your economy is relatively even and you have a relatively even army, or maybe a bit better, if you see your opponent age up, straight away you want to be putting some pressure on. So you want to be doing some damage to their eco, trying to take out their army before their imperial techs come in, because your opponent has invested like nearly 4,000 resources into getting to that next stage, which means that's 4,000 resources that wasn't put into army. So now Viper putting some pressure on, taking out quite a few vills here from Lucifron. Viper at 110 vills. Lucifron at now 76, 75. And Viper, what's his plan here? Viper is potentially looking at aging up himself. He wouldn't be floating this much food unless he was trying to age up here. A little bit of idle, but that's expected when you got this kind of thing going on here. So now the elite horse archers are in. Viper's managed to do a bit of damage. Looking to still put some pressure on. Try and idle Lucifron even more to prevent him from streaming up more and more horse archers here. And he also knows he's got the number advantage, right? Because Lucifron has invested in getting to the next stage. Another thing that he's doing really well here is he's camping the military buildings of Lucifron. So in any situation like this, if you feel like you can't put any pressure on like certain resources or anything like that, camp your opponent's military buildings, so as the new units come out, you can snipe them one by one. That's why you see Lucifron forcing this fight, even though it's not necessarily like the best fight for him. He needs to do this to pull away the attention from Viper so he can continue to create horse archers out of these buildings. I think at this point Viper is happy to sacrifice his army. He's done quite a lot of damage, he's traded quite cost effectively here, and he's bought himself enough time to get up to Imperial himself. So now he's at home, just massing up at home again. He's not streaming new units over here because that's just a risky approach in kind of how you can lose. You want to, when you get up to the next stage, you want to be able to upgrade in as many units as possible that are on the field. So instead of him maybe sending more over here, like trading somewhat okay, he's decided to mass up at home and wait for his technologies to come in when he gets to the Imperial Age. So opting to go for the military wing. Another thing, like, he still hasn't made a camel this whole time. I feel like if he had made camels, he would be winning these fights a lot harder. So something to keep in mind when you're playing the Abbasid. Obviously outside of that, Viper has played this almost flawlessly. So props to him, he's obviously like one of the best AOE4 players at the moment. And it's a lot easier from like a caster's perspective or analyzing a game to like critique something. Like a lot of the things half the time like I'll forget in my game, and like that's why I'm not obviously as good as someone like the Viper. But hopefully giving you these insights kind of helps you to kind of pick up on anything that you might be completely missing in your game or you're not aware of that you should be implementing. So again, Viper just buying more time with these pesky little raids. He's hit Imperial now, making some rams to kind of get rid of this keep position here. And another thing he's done is put down more military buildings. Obviously his eco has been getting better and better. So now he's at 7 archery ranges and 5 barrackses. Thing is now as well, these techs are all really expensive, right? If he had gotten this preservation of knowledge earlier, he would have reduced the cost of all of these by 30%. So he went up there with the culture wing but never utilized anything from the culture wing. Now he's got the military wing, he's increasing the health of all infantry by 15%, which is all of his army at the moment. Another thing he could go for is camel support, which not only will your camels reduce the attack of your opponent's horses, or opponent's cavalry, it's actually going to improve the armor of your infantry. So having that could really help Viper, even on top of the cavalry debuff if he had camels. Just a few camel archers with his archers would buff his whole army and debuff the whole enemy's army, because obviously the enemy hasn't made anything other than cavalry so far. Nice fight here. Interesting that he's opting to go for all the villagers with these pikes. I think just a few of the pikes would have been fine here and having the rest come over to the army. But it looks like he was still confident enough in his archers to kind of win this fight. Looks like he is pulling ahead with the numbers here. Archers also almost the same HP, a little bit less defense and obviously less attack as well. But again, they are cheaper than the horse archer, so trading quite cost effectively here. And these pikes prevent him from making any kind of scouts to do any sort of meat shield. Like, that's the main function of a scout, is meat shield, but the pikes are kind of mitigating that altogether. They just melt through them. That's why like something like man-at-arms would be better as a frontline option for Lucifron, but obviously they are very heavy in food, which means you will be able to invest less into your horse archers. Nonetheless, Viper doing a great job taking down the first town center. Second town center that was actually. All rams coming in. And at this point, Viper has heaps of resources. Lucifron's struggling to get anything out. And this is... looks like the game's going to be closed out here. Bunch of mangonels coming out though, but they will be picked up quickly because there is no infantry there or horse archers to defend those. Man, I'm seriously impressed by Viper's gameplay with the Abbasid. This actually makes me want to try them more. I did play a game of Abbasid today and managed to get a dub with them, so that was cool, but this has kind of inspired me to maybe try them a little bit more on the ladder. Like, obviously not every game is you're going to be able to copy exactly what Viper's doing here, because you're not going to be versing the same like fast castle, high pressure build. But if you kind of assess what your opponent's doing and adapt based on that, you actually might have a good chance. I mean, Viper might just make them look good and then I'll play them and then it's a bit like, ew, how the hell did Viper manage to do this stuff? But I think I'll be giving this more of a crack. I will probably be streaming this on my Twitch, so if you haven't already checked me out, you can check me out there. But this game is coming to an end and Lucifron calls it. Man. That was incredible. Like, the fact that he managed to win with Abbasid and not using the camel buffs, like, he missed out on a lot of camel buffs and he still managed to pull away with the victory there. So, man, that was kind of crazy. But hopefully you enjoyed that kind of analysis of what Viper was doing, and maybe if you are an aspiring Abbasid player or you play Abbasid and you're looking to improve your gameplay, hopefully that kind of helped with it. If you are looking for like a build order that covers the double TC opening that the Viper did, I do have a previous video. I'll probably leave a card somewhere in this video. You can go check that out. I have a playlist with all my build order guides and stuff there. So if you're interested in that, just go check that out. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys.